So I don't normally complain about WWE at all when it comes to like WrestleManias and other PLEs. Like, I even defend the Pat McAfee storyline embedded into Randy versus Cody. I think it's all, to me, it was like, well, I'm defending it because it's like, well, this is reminiscent of Hogan at WrestleMania 18, where Hogan could literally run over the Rock with a car, and the fans were like, we're ready to cheer for Hogan. Like, I thought this was, hey, we are ready to cheer for Randy no matter what. And you even got that last night. But, wow. WrestleMania 42 night one was just not very good. And for me to say that, it has to be awful. So, like and subscribe, hate and comment. There were 7 matches on the night, and I'll go as much as I can remember in order. The first match was the Usos and LA Knight, who all year are not friends, teaming up against the Vision, who can still walk, and ISO Speed. And look, I love when a celebrity goes on the WWE and gets beat. Okay, Jelly Roll taking the fall a couple PLEs ago. I thought it made perfect sense. Like, celebrities shouldn't always win those things. And the match just seemed kind of short. Like, do I buy that Logan Paul is that much of a... I mean, Logan Paul is that much of a dick, but that, Austin Theory's nowhere to be seen at the end of the match, and ISO Speed takes the L. Okay, you want to get the crowd happy, I think the people that are there to watch ISO Speed don't want him to be a bad guy. And so, fine, you have him, smash up Logan Paul, which is always a nice thing. The match itself was kind of short, and that's a running total for the 7 matches on the night. The second match was Fatu versus Drew in an unsanctioned match, and 15 minutes, perfectly fine in length. Drew should lose, and he did, and that was good. The only problem I have is that there was no Crimson, and this is not an AEW thing. AEW, every match has Crimson in it, and it just doesn't work. In the WWE, 0 blood is good. 1 blooded match is, usually great. 2 is pushing it, and 3 is way too much. So I get not having Crimson, especially what happens later in the night. But that's the only drawback of it. It's probably technically the best match of the night. Then you get into the heart of the PLE. If you're like me, who's, as we all know, is in Australia, thanks to Surfshark, so that they can watch it on Netflix instead of paying $30 a month for PLEs that are generally not worth it. And, I don't think you should ever have to pay for ESPN. When it's not NFL season, or even if you're really into college football, do you really need to pay $30 a month? Especially in, March, April, May, June, July, August. So, yeah. As you know, I'm in beautiful Brisbane, Australia right now, watching the PLE. The Fatal 4-Way Women's Tag Match. Okay, look. You had I think it was Brie Bella. I don't care which Bella is which. I've never really cared about the Bellas. Overall, they're John Laurinaitis' stepkids, and if you know the name John Laurinaitis, he's a real cretin with the whole, just being a cretin in general when it comes to women's wrestling. With famously, you get rid of Cowboy Country, Mickie James, and you put all of her shit in a trash bag, and it's not even the right stuff. Like, that's a John Laurinaitis move, and don't even get on the whole Vince McMahon thing. I don't really care about them. One of them's hurt. You could have brought up a team from NXT to take a fall. There's a lot of great women's wrestling in NXT. They should, if you're gonna, there's way too many belts in WWE, but the one you could bring back is the women's NXT women's title, tag team titles. Or you put in Asuka and with the Kabuki Warriors. Instead, you put in Saraya, known as Paige, and they get the L. I mean, they get the W. Like, the part-timer. I mean, she has a tremendous neck problem. That's why she's out of was out of WWE for so long, you don't know the stability of her neck, and you're going to give part-timers the women's title at a time in which the tag scene has actually gotten good for women's wrestling. The clear storyline was either going to be the breakup of Lila Valkyrie and Bayley by either having them win the titles over Char and Alexa, or the breakup of Char and Alexa winning the titles or going over at Backlash, right? Or maybe the June PLE. Instead, now you've got them on two part-timers. I don't care about it. And is this going to be like last year where Lila and Becky dropped the title the next night? Because you've got part-timers, and now you basically had a match that had literally no purpose, and it was 8 minutes long. I know women's tag matches are never, 20, 25-minute affairs, but 8 minutes is, well, that's reminiscent of a Nikki and Bella match from when they were wrestling. Like, it's just way too short. You then went with Becky versus AJ Lee, and that was another 8-minute match that didn't really do much. I mean, some of that could be that AJ Lee, part-timer, hasn't wrestled in 10 years. Maybe there's just a limited amount of what she can do, and so you don't want to overexpose that. And some matches can be shorter than others. 8 minutes, I think, is kind of short when you have Becky and AJ Lee. The biggest thing out of it is Jessica Carr, the referee. I think you've set up, if the WWE does it right, which they haven't this year, you set up Jessica Carr challenging Becky at some point, either at the Backlash or the June PLE. I'm not sure if the June PLE is, if it's Clash at the Castle one, or if it's some other PLE. Maybe that's where you set it up. Jessica Carr does wrestle. She wrestles in Evolve. She's been a wrestler for 10 years. She's kind of in that Joey Morella, sort of too small to be a pro wrestler full-time in the WWE. So maybe this is the, like Joey Morella was mostly a referee. Maybe that's what you're doing with Jessica Carr. And, that's fine. And hopefully AJ Lee can get into some other matches where, sort of like Edge with his WWE role, that final one, where you get in some matches that, the final time or first time, there's a lot of people that you never wrestled before, which would be fine to go up against with this go around. I think then you had the introduction of the WWE Hall of Famers, and there's only so much Stephanie McMahon anyone can take. It's just but fine. AJ Styles, clearly there's some gas left in the tank, and I do think he's going to go somewhere else before the end of the year to finish it out. I don't really think he's done. And then you had Seth versus Gunther. Good match. No real note on the match itself. Gunther getting the W made sense. Braun Breaker's back, so missed up the second spear a little bit, but Braun Breaker's back, coming back from injury. Now it's okay. Do you put the rocket on him? That they may have fizzled. The crowd loves him. They don't care he's a bad guy. They love him. I think he's ready. They'll does set up a match against Seth, where I think he should go over. And I know I know Money in the Bank is later on this year. And maybe that's where you get him in the title picture. At that point, I think Seth's majority of his days are over at this point as a main eventer. And I think he kind of knows that. He's on the wrong side of 40. There's only so much. I think, maybe you give him one more run, that if he's healthy. I can't see a long term with him. I think he's going to be more in that Finn Balor sort of role at this point. He's going to be the final, not the pre-boss, not the final boss, on your way to a title run. Then you had the women's championship. How is that match only 8 minutes long? Arguably, the best build of the entirety of WrestleMania has been Liv versus Stephanie Vaquer. I could argue that has been the best realm. That should have been night one main event. It's the only match where you're like, yeah, these two people hate each other. You've got Liv Morgan, who, is everything that Stephanie Vaquer is not. Liv Morgan, blonde, fake breasts, kind of short, slarmy, slutty, versus Stephanie Vaquer, Chilean, immigrant, didn't go through, NXT, the tough enough angle, had to go through the indies forever, had to wrestle in, in Machu Picchu and for, pesos in Mexico, and you have this build of, you have this natural heat between each other, and then you have Dirty Dom, as sort of the person that can, like is that sort of he's the slarmy conduit there, and you have Liv, Stephanie's not even on the poster for the female WrestleMania, but clearly, like, that's a night one. That should have been the night one. Should have been the night one, main event, and it's 8 minutes long. And not only is it 8 minutes long, but you jump to the Judgment Day coming out at about the 4-minute mark. I mean, that's a match that you can run on Raw. That's not main event. That's not a WrestleMania PLE match. I don't have a problem with Liv winning. That was the one match where I'm like, hey, I don't know who's going to win. Does Liv go over? Does Liv lose but turns face? Does Stephanie go over? Does Stephanie Vaquer, does her reign continue? I didn't have a problem with Liv winning. I have a problem with just how short it was. I mean, it's 8 minutes. And apparently it was the shortest women's title match in like 20 years. Like just like what the actual F. It's good to see Bianca Belair back. Obviously, she's going to be on the shelf for much longer, with the pregnancy. I thought, when she wore the outfit, wasn't really thinking pregnancy. I was thinking, maybe she's about to retire. Finger issue, more legit than you would probably ever imagine. I mean, she's been on the shelf for so long. There was talk that her finger was going to have to get amputated. Congratulations on the pregnancy. If she does come back into wrestling in the future, great. If she doesn't, great. A lot of female wrestlers after 35 don't go back, period. She is at that range. She's actually older than Mercedes Moné, older than Lila Valkyrie, older than even Stephanie Vaquer, Lila Valkyrie, sorry, older than Stephanie Vaquer. If this is her swan song, it sucks that their last match was, getting injured at WrestleMania 41, but, hopefully you do see it again. Then you get to the main event. I like that they had the jump start. I like the Pat McAfee went out there, started beat up, gets beat up. You set up, Jelly Roll versus Pat McAfee. I think that was supposed to be part of the picture, or at least there's a tag match with the four of them. Pat gets sent back to the back. Eventually, you got Randy hearing the voices. Punks out the ref. You got Pat with the referee gear because somehow he's healthy enough to not only be healthy enough to be recovered, but to get on a brace and put on the uniform and come out, much like CM Punk at Clash at the Castle that one year, but without the injury, so it's even more dramatic. I guess the voices in Randy's head took over and had to RKO Pat, but then he gets pinned, which means that Pat McAfee is supposed to be done with the WWE, which maybe is the case. I don't know if this is the TKO calling the higher ups, but the crowd was noticeably booing the ending. Not because it was a bad ending. It was 22 minutes a match, 25 if you include the pre before it started. Match is perfectly fine. I think they want Randy to win. They wanted to cheer Randy. They don't want to cheer Cody anymore. And after the match, the reason why you don't do the punt is apparently Cody is in concussion protocol. The Crimson in the match. Obviously, Cody learned from his dad how to blade. I think it's possible Randy was supposed to blade, and I think that might have been more hard ways than imaginable because it was right in the middle. I know that they hit the post and then they cut away. I think it was meant to bleed, but because it was so little that came out, normally it would be like squirting out or because the when you're taught as a wrestler, a lot of guys will take aspirin or something to thin out the blood so that it'll get more paint, but it was more limited. So I wonder if he was meant to do the Crimson, but actually got it hard ways, and he was like, "Oh, I'm fine," because it wasn't a lot of blood that came out on Randy. It was a lot on Cody. But the punt put Cody in concussion protocol. The eye is messed up. It's pretty fucking bad. He might be on the shelf for a few weeks. And what's the build for Backlash? Is it Cody versus Randy at Backlash? Is this like Randy versus Edge? Greatest match in the world ever during the pandemic. Like, are we in that situation? And is there some storyline where Pat McAfee's still involved? Those are questions, but at the end of the day, just a disappointment. I mean, it's the main event. You had 85 minutes of total wrestling in a 4-hour show with 7 matches. You have 6 tonight, and unless you squeak in Io Sky, who had the most matches, the second most matches last year of any female wrestler behind Roxanne Perez, who was involved in the Liv Morgan match and has been legitimately injured. But you have the woman with the most matches, period, last year, Roxanne Perez, not on the card. Liv Morgan, obviously was injured. Now she's a champ, right? Io Sky, best match last year, not on the card. You have Chelsea Green, audience wants to be around, injury kind of looks over, not on the card. Tiffany Stratton, world champion, last year's WrestleMania, not on the card. Asuka, getting up there. I mean, she's on the wrong side of 40. How many more matches is she going to have where she could be at the Showcase of the Immortals? Not on the card, unless they throw in Asuka versus Io tonight and don't wait for Raw. You have only 6 matches. I'm assuming the 6-man ladder IC match is going to be the longest match of the night. Unless you can count the entire walk time for Roman to get to the ring. But never had a WrestleMania where I've been like, wow, this is really not good since I was a teenager, since like WrestleMania 11 with LT and Bam Bam. And at least we had LT go over Bam Bam. It's just not good. So hopefully I'm wrong about night 2, but wow, night 1 was just disappointing.